This recording is brought to you by Hallmark Gift Books, a division of Hallmark Cards Incorporated. To learn more about Story Buddies, visit us on the web at hallmark.com/storybuddy. Now it's time to press Rudolph's ear to get him to read the story with you. When you hear, it's time to turn the page. Enjoy the story.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by Chelsea Resnick, illustrated by Ed Meyer. Way up at the North Pole, there is a magical place called Christmas Town. That's where Santa lives with Mrs. Claus and all his elves and reindeer. It was also where Rudolph, the most famous reindeer of all, lived. Like all reindeer at the North Pole, Rudolph's greatest dream was to pull Santa's sleigh. But he wasn't like any of the other reindeer in Christmas Town because Rudolph had a bright, shiny red nose. When he was little, Rudolph wore a pretend nose, so he would look like all the other reindeer. He impressed everyone at the reindeer games, too. He was a natural at flying. But one day, Rudolph's pretend nose popped off. The other reindeer all laughed and called him names. Who ever heard of a reindeer with a red nose? It seemed that Rudolph just didn't fit in. Since everyone learned the truth, Rudolph would never be allowed to pull Santa's sleigh. So he decided to set off on his own. Luckily, Rudolph soon met a couple of friends who were different, just like he was. Hermie the elf didn't like making toys. He wanted to be a dentist. Yukon Cornelius wasn't afraid of anything. He crossed mountains in wind and snow, searching for silver and gold. Rudolph was thankful he found friends like these. In the North Pole wilderness, Rudolph and his friends met many dangers. Most scary of all was a snow monster, the Great Bumble of the North. Unfortunately, Rudolph's shiny nose was easy for the Bumble to spot. One day, as the friends tried to avoid becoming Bumble snacks, they hopped onto an iceberg. Soon they were drifting. When they landed, they were on the island of Misfit Toys, a mysterious place where the world's most unusual and unwanted toys came to live. Rudolph and his friends felt at home. Rudolph realized that he didn't mind being different. Rudolph knew he couldn't stay on the island forever. And he couldn't let his bright nose keep putting Hermie and Yukon Cornelius in danger. The Bumble would catch them all sooner or later. So Rudolph decided to strike off on his own. Time passed, and Rudolph grew and grew and grew. Now, more grown up, Rudolph began to see that he couldn't keep running from his troubles. It was time to go home. He had to see his parents and, of course, the magical man himself, Santa Claus. When Rudolph arrived home, he learned that his parents and his friend Clarice had gone looking for him and still hadn't returned. What if they were in danger? "I'll find them all," Rudolph vowed. The first place he looked was the Bumble's enormous cave. And, oh no! Sure enough, there were his mom, dad, and Clarice. This was a huge disaster. It was lucky that Hermie and Yukon Cornelius happened to pass the Bumble's cave. Leaping into action, Hermie lured the bumble outside the cave by oinking like a pig. As everyone knows, pigs are a bumble's most favorite treat. Then, crash! Boom! Yukon Cornelius pushed a boulder onto the beast's giant head. With the bumble out cold, Hermie removed every one of its razor-sharp teeth. Rudolph sighed with relief. He was thankful he found friends like these. With his loved ones safe, Rudolph returned to Santa's workshop. Everyone was glad to see him. But there wasn't time to make things right yet. A grand snowstorm, the worst Santa had ever seen, was barreling toward the North Pole. If the weather didn't let up soon, Santa's reindeer wouldn't be able to see. If they couldn't see, then they couldn't fly. And if they couldn't fly, then Santa couldn't deliver any toys. Christmas would have to be canceled. This was a huge disaster. Santa didn't want to let down all the little boys and girls of the world, but what could he do? As he stepped into the hall to announce that Christmas would be canceled, Rudolph's bright red nose lit up. Suddenly, Santa had an idea. "Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?" Rudolph was utterly dumbfounded. Santa wanted Rudolph to lead the sleigh. "It would be an honor, sir," said Rudolph. He suited up with the other reindeer. Then he took Santa to the island of misfit toys, where they picked up all the world's forgotten toys to deliver them to girls and boys who would love them. After that, they were all off, and away. And what became of Rudolph? He went down in history.